me, your best friend Rachel Evans, back with another episode of Dark Five, and today we're talking about ghosts.
What?
Yeah, man. One thing I've always found fascinating is how different cultures and regions view the other worldly realms. Ghosts are universal, sure, but one person's Casper is another person's Duende, which you will learn about in just a second. So today on Dark Five, I'm bringing you a tour de spooky to see how 5 different cultures perceive the spirit realm. I'm so goddamn lucky to be joined by my actual very good friend and ghost seer.
Go on.
And beautiful woman.
Ooh.
And smart.
Independent.
Very
Fierce.
independent. You just did a writing thing and you're into the finals of that now.
Oh, yeah.
You're very
thank
successful
you.
in every way. You may know
One
her.
a couple of ways not successful.
Exactly, but hey, whatever, we're fine and not alone. And you may recognize her from, I don't know, Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh my gosh,
where
that
her
was
real
me.
face and I'm still
I played
screaming.
myself. Everyone's like, yeah, but who did you play? Myself. Yeah, but who?
Danny Fernandez.
Yeah, but who though in
Bitch.
it? I'm like, no.
I screamed.
Did you scream?
I screamed and I recorded it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't know if that's legal.
Nope.
But a lot
do
of
a
people,
boomerang,
a lot
that's
of people sent me the recording. I think Erica Ishii, who's also an amazing host, she sent me her recording it in the theater, screaming like in the theater.
I was with my family. I was back in Texas, and I was like, "That's my friend. That's my friend." And they're like, "Nobody cares."
So I took my niece, who's 3, to see it the day that it opened.
Aww.
Also, they sent me like a ton of Ralph toys, so I sent them all to her because I'm like, she'll actually play with them, and they won't just live on a shelf for their life. And I took her, and we were like, there's your Auntie Danny, there's Tia Danny, and she was like, okay. And then when the princess scene happened, she was like, Moana, which is what she calls Moana. Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
She didn't give a shit about the other princesses. She just was screaming about Moana.
That understands. I too am often screaming about Moana, but I also, sorry, it's Danny Fernandez. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. So it was a great experience. Yes.
So I think a lot of people know a lot about you, Danny, but because you have a very active Twitter that I love.
Oh yeah.
But
I'm
also
very open about my life.
You're very open about your life, but one thing that I think is a little untapped in the catalog de Danny is your connection with the spirit realm.
Yeah. The women in my family are very clairvoyant and powerful. You and I actually went to see a reader, remember?
Oh, yeah.
And I was telling you in the car, I'm like, yeah, well, I have brujas in my family, and but my family's also Catholic, so it's kind of, Mexican culture is really interesting because those two things kind of can actually coexist in ways. We're all very superstitious. But when I was telling you about that, I had some witches in my lineage, and when you and I sat down, I watched you get a reading done. The second I sat down, the guy was like, "Oh, do you have a witch in your family?"
So many spirits in there trying to talk to you.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And it was and you and I just looked at each other and laughed. I was like, yeah.
And then the second time we went, because we went twice, the second time we went, he was like, "You have a very strong spirit."
Yeah. In fact, he did my reading first that time. Then he did yours, and he was like, "I'm sorry, I got to talk to Danny again."
Yeah.
Remember that? And so, I've been actually in a lot of haunted places, like real life haunted places throughout my life. And
you just did a show about it.
I did, actually. I shot a comedy ghost hunting pilot where it was myself and Barbara Crampton, who's a scream queen, April Wolf, and then Jamie Loftus, who's a comedian. And we spent the night, we shot the pilot episode, we spent the night in Bob Baker's Marionette Theater, which is very haunted. And I got to, but in a good way. It was a good spirits.
Okay.
Nothing, I mean, it's still scary when something happens, but it was... See, if the show gets picked up, I'm like, where else are we gonna go? Because not everywhere feels as good as, a man that loved puppets and loved, performing for families. So.
From my experience with learning about the supernatural, for more times than not, they're there for not great reasons. Yeah. But that's
haunted because something horrible happened that is keeping them. Yeah.
Exactly. But that is also a cultural, that's something that differs between cultures. So we're going to get into your story in just a sec. But to start, I thought we would dig into some interesting practices from around the world, starting with Halloween, and then we're going to get into the Dybbuk, because myself, a Jew, that's all I know. We're going to get into Filipino ghosts to honor our sister Sapphira, Sapphire for people who don't know my nickname for Sapphire. And then Chinese folklore, and then we'll finish up with you, Miss Dani Fernandez, Queen of the Underground. That's your new name.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it fits.
Thanks. Okay, so number 5, trick or treat. Number 5. I kind of miss doing that. I haven't done Dark 5 in like a year and a half, and my favorite part was all the times I had to go, number 5, trick or treat. Number 5, trick or treat.
Oh, you did it like 3 times in a row.
I like it.
Give it. Each time mine is like in voice class they tell us to emphasize a different word. So it'd be like number 5, trick or treat.
Oh,
number 5, trick or treat.
Oh, I like that.
Whenever you have to give different.
Number 5, trick or treat.
Yep. Yeah.
I like that
whenever
one.
Whenever they ask for 3 different variations, that's an easy trick.
Or treat.
Okay, let's move on.
Oh, God.
Let's get into it.
I'm gonna die here. But most things to do with the spirit realm, as it relates to different cultures, have very deep significance and meaning. This is not one of those things. Trick or treat is, however, a national treasure, and I think it's worth talking about. So everyone did it. Everyone still does it, right, guys? I just take candy whenever I see it.
It's
I
kind
just
of
take
funny
candy.
because you could just go and get like a $5 bag. Like, we're adults, like, as
You can
opposed
buy
to
it, but-
what's really funny for me is, like, I don't think any adults want to go trick-or-treating because that would be going outside and having to do physical activity.
Yeah.
When you could just get like a $5 bag of Snickers and just sit and watch Netflix.
That's true. I like to think about like anytime I go to a doctor's office and I pick up candy, it's like I'm trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
But no, you're not. You're just like
I'm trick-or-treating.
you're just getting nerds from your dentist's office for some reason. But Dani, I thought this might be fun. Do you have any guesses about where trick or treat comes from?
Oh, probably from the olden days. Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, you're right.
Yes. Did it trick or treat? Did it have to do with like something about a spirit, like tricking? You leave them in exchange or something.
Oh, you were kind of right.
Okay.
So back in the Middle Ages, which is back in the day,
Olden days,
like you said, beggars, which is people who didn't have anything, homeless people, I guess, would knock on the doors of the rich and ask for food. If they received food, the beggars prayed that ghosts would not come to haunt the owner's house. But if they refused, they would be haunted by ghosts. And as time passed by, this evolved into our modern version of children knocking on houses saying trick or treat.
And also into Beauty and the Beast.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, that's how Beauty and the Beast started.
What?
You think of the old woman who came begging, and when he refused, she haunted him. She cast
God.
a spell.
Well, you are Disney canon, so I would expect you to know
Even
that.
before all this, I knew everything about Disney. It's so. I did
I
a
know
show. I
nothing.
shot a show with Open Mike Eagle. We have a new show, and I would just sing and I felt so bad for our sound people, but I would just anytime that we cut in between scenes when we were waiting on set, I would just be singing Disney songs, and he was like, "You know everything about Disney."
I do not. I know nothing, Jon Snow. I know absolutely nothing
Come
about
over.
Disney. Okay, I'll watch Disney movies. I just didn't. I just really didn't watch them growing up. I don't know why. I watched Dumbo for sure, but I remember that. But yeah, so beggars used to curse the houses of people that were not charitable towards them, which I think is a great practice. I think if somebody needs food, you should give it to them, and if not, you should be haunted by ghosts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where trick or treat came from. But speaking of Halloween, the Celts believe that October 31st marked the dawn of darkness, and so they lit bonfires to keep the spookies away, which is where the jack-o'-lantern comes from. There's actually like a stringy jack, or there was some sort of like spirit that was caught inside of the jack-o'-lantern, and it was holding a light to keep away other demons. And so the idea of the carved pumpkin were like pokeballs for ghosts. And so they would carve out pumpkins, and then they would put a light inside to
and it would
either
catch a spirit in there.
the spirits would be caught. I keep on
Interesting.
almost burping. Should I just do it?
Yeah, it does remind me of a scarecrow. That's what I thought they were essentially like,
To scare them away.
them away.
So the light is supposed to scare them away, but if it's just a carved out pumpkin,
Yeah.
then it's supposed to trap them in there.
I have a question. What are scarecrows?
What are scarecrows?
Because listen, that
That's a
doesn't make
great
sense.
idea.
Who are they supposed to scare? Crows? That doesn't make sense. We always see crows historically sitting on scarecrows.
You're so correct
So
about
who are
that.
they scaring?
Scarecrows. Us, me, specifically.
Yeah.
They scare me for
It sounds
sure.
like they're supposed to be scaring the crows, but canonically, we always
We
see
know.
crows just sitting on the scarecrow, like just chill as hell.
Crow-
They're also filled with like hay that they need to make their nests with.
Yeah.
So
It's like a built-in human nest.
Yeah.
It's like a body pillow for crows.
yeah, it
I
does
don't
not
understand
make
it.
sense.
If you're a farmer and you have
Please.
any intel about scarecrows, please at us. Thank you so much. Or you can email dark5@snarled.com.
I was gonna say they're not moving, so that's like
They're not moving.
Yeah.
Unless there's wind or they're possessed or it's Jeepers Creepers.
yeah, or scarecrow from. I was gonna
From-
say the Lion King. From
Which
Wizard
one
of
is
Oz.
it? Wizard of Oz. See how little I know. Which one is it again? No, that scared me. Wizard
He
of
is
Oz,
scary. All of them are terrifying.
The whole Wizard of Oz scared me because I'm scared of anthropomorphization. I'm scared of animals talking.
Oh, okay.
That's
why
really
you don't watch Disney films. Okay.
Honestly, yeah. I used to think I had
Or the Brave Little Toaster.
or the Brave Little Toaster. I had a breakdown when I was in 4th grade one time. I was at my friend Libby's house and her dog was staring at me and I thought it was going to start talking to me
Yeah.
and I had to go home. I thought it was going to start talking to me and I started crying and I was like, this little beagle is going to start talking to me and I got to go home.
I would be so happy if
I
Molly,
would
my
not
dog,
because you
did.
know what it is? You know what it is? It's not if it were Molly and it was like, "Hey mom, just want to say I love you." And you were like, "Thanks."
Yeah.
But if it's a dog talking to you, you can't tell anybody. No one's going to believe you.
Right. Actually, if my dog started talking, because she's technically 77 and
she'd be like,
human,
"Hey,
no,
Daddy."
she would sound like a smoker. Like, stop bringing these dudes over here.
Yeah, know your worth.
Like-
Those are her last words. Know your worth. oh, sweet. Anyway, that's just like a bit of fun for the number 1, okay?
Oh, I love it.
Oh, is it technically number 5?
Oh, okay.
We go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5.
That makes sense.
Thank you. Number 4. So the next one I wanted to get into because I am Jewish and Jews do not believe in like a devil. So we don't believe in demons. The
Wait
idea
a
of
second.
Jews don't believe in the devil.
What about the Old Testament? It was all of this talk of the devil.
No devil. No devil. Devil is new boy stuff. We don't believe in a
Really?
hell. We believe in a Gehenna, which is like the max amount of time you can go there is 11 months.
Oh,
And
that sounds so nice.
I know. And it's just you're confronted by all your demons, internal demons.
Oh,
like,
God.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
God.
every mistake you ever made in
Yeah,
life, they
yeah,
like
yeah.
talk to you and they're
Ugh,
like, that was
that's
bad.
already happening
And-
now. That's already
Exactly.
happening now.
So you probably wouldn't have to spend that much time in Gehenna. Honestly,
Okay.
for a normal person, it'd probably like 2 months or something. If you killed somebody, like 11 months. If you're Hitler, forever. But no, but that's the extent of what we have. We don't have like a Hades. So it's actually the idea of ghosts are not very prevalent in Jewish culture, which upsets me because I like the spookies. But I did hear about this one thing, which is funny. Because unlike your growing up,
Yeah, Catholicism.
well, yeah, you hear about this stuff all the time, especially specifically with your family, having clairvoyance in the family.
Yeah.
It's something that is presented to you from a young age. But Dybbuk's, which is number 4, Dybbuk's are specifically Jewish, but not something that Jews ever talk about, which I find very interesting. It's like it's part of Jewish lore, but nobody ever. If I told my mom about it, she'd be like, yeah, whatever.
That's like Catholics with sex.
Right.
We know it exists, but we're not ever allowed to
And they're-
acknowledge it.
No, you're not.
We came here from the stork.
You're not allowed to acknowledge it until it happens to you, which is a Dybbuk thing. So I'm, like I said, I'm not Jewish, which is decidedly not that metal. Christians have a lot more fire and brimstone and damnation, but not us. So you can imagine my excitement when I heard about Dybbuk's. Dybbuk is a malicious possessing spirit, and I say malicious in a very light way because when you think of a malicious spirit, what do you think of?
Oh man, that's different. I was gonna say a demon, but demon's not the same as a spirit.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But it is a possessing force.
Okay, yeah.
So when you think of malicious, you think of like a demon, right?
Yeah.
So the thing about a Dybbuk, is that it is a possessing spirit. So in that way, it is malicious because it does cause harm. But it's trapped. And it's trapped inside of a Dybbuk box, which is essentially just a vessel, generally an antique. And when it gets opened, the Dybbuk possesses the person who opens it, and then the displaced spirit of the dead person who has unfinished business. Once the spirit has accomplished its goal, it leaves the host body. That does not sound malicious to me. That sounds like a goal-oriented spirit. Like, it doesn't even it just sounds needy. Like, it doesn't sound malicious to me. It sounds like, hey, I need to, like, help telling Papa that I forgive him.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's not metal.
Right. That's kind of like The Sixth Sense, where, like, they kept bothering Haley Joel Osment, and it was because they needed to get a message across, and he was the only one that could help them.
Is it even scary if the need of the ghost is earthly?
Yeah. Anytime that a ghost is trying to contact you, it's terrifying because it's unexpected. And even when you are expecting it, I think you're halfway not expecting them to actually say something. And then when they do, or they show you a sign that you specifically asked for, that's never not terrifying.
I think you're right. I mean, because, like, anything unexplained, anything that you can't touch is kind of spooky. But what I do find interesting about a Dybbuk is that it's never revenge. Yeah. It's always a goal. It's always something that they need to finish. It's an untapped potential type of thing. And then they leave, which is unlike most ghost stories, I think. But moving on to actually, before we do that, we're going to move on to Filipino ghosts after this because they're very similar but also very different. But before we do that, I would love you guys to listen to this thing that somebody has to say right after. Wait, it's going to happen right now. Oh my God, welcome back. I hope it was good. I hope that whatever you listened to, I hope it was good. I don't know what
I just realized this is my camera. I've been, like, looking at this main one.
You
I just
can
realized
look at...
that I can just... Hello.
Oh, wait, everyone... Hey, if you're listening only with your ears, you're really missing out.
Oh, yeah.
Because Danny make very intense eye contact into that camera. You could just play this on loop and pretend like Danny is your girlfriend.
What's up?
And then she could maybe be your girlfriend.
Yeah.
If you, like, have a cool job and, like, have nice interests and maybe respect women. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Specifically, Danny, that woman. That would be good. That woman. Anyway. We're back. So we just talked about Dybbuks a little bit. And so there's something similar to that is the idea of the ghost in Filipino culture. And when I say this, that is... that's a huge blanket because Filipino culture has spirits and ghosts and duendes and all these types
I love
of
duende. I don't know. It sounds like a fusion between like Wednesday, Addams, and Dende from Dragon Ball Z.
You would be obsessed with duendes. So essentially, they like come from ant piles, and you have to feed them fruit. And then they go away.
Are they ants?
They're little trolls. They might be ants. I mean, in reality, they might be ants. They might be big ants. But no, they're supposedly not that great to look at. But the Dybbuk is not unlike the Filipino multa, which is, fun fact, a derivative from the Spanish word muerto, which means, what does it mean? Death. You're right. Yep. She's right, guys. Oh, believe it or not. So the multa is the soul of a dead person that has returned to the mortal world. It may want to finish an incomplete task or promise, very similar to the Dybbuk, or take revenge. That's where it changes. It may return because of an improper burial or an unusually violent death or suicide. This is where the theism comes in because it's a very Christian belief that if you commit suicide, you will not go to heaven.
Yeah.
So that's
But you don't stay here typically. I mean, in Christianity, I think they believe that you go to hell.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
which
so
is
maybe
like not a great, which is like not great at all. Because it's like this person was hurting so much in their life that they wanted to
send them to hell.
Yeah, let's hurt them further.
Yeah, like they were already.
I don't agree with a lot of things. Same with like if a baby isn't baptized, there's supposedly possibly not getting into heaven.
Oh,
it's another thing. That's why they get baptized as babies. And I'm like, I don't think if God loved babies that he would send them to hell or purgatory or limbo, or that was a common belief for a while. I don't think the church embraces that anymore.
That is so interesting. That is so interesting because I don't know
because
why
they were
I didn't know
all
that.
born with original sin.
Oh, cool.
And so that's why you get baptize. Well, one of the reasons.
Is it
why.
because we're born from our mother's womb and women are bad?
Listen,
Is that
you know,
it?
a man wrote the Bible,
You're
so
right.
I'm like, he
A few
probably
men.
a few men.
Few
I
good
think
men.
he changed it. I think they were like, look, we can't. If they knew Adam took oh man, we got to give this to Eve.
We were just talking about the Garden of Eden in our last episode, which I love because it's there a lot of misconceptions about not only the spirit world but also about women come from your dear Bible. But something that I find interesting about the Filipino culture is that they believe in kind of everything. So not only do they believe that these spirits are coming back to either seek revenge or because they had died in some sort of incredibly violent way, but they also think that they may be seeking a replacement so that it can live again. So like reincarnation.
Yes.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So the Filipino fascination obviously doesn't end with supernatural. With the supernatural doesn't end at multas or spirits. They have these things called, oh Jesus, I wrote this and oh man, I'm going to say this so wrong and everyone's going to hate me. Okay, ready? Mananangal. Mananagal.
Meninagal? Maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
That was wonderful. Danny, how did you do that? So that is a vampire who can separate her, keyword her, upper torso from her lower body in order to fly into the night with huge bat-like wings to prey on unsuspecting pregnant women in their homes.
Oof.
What?
Wow.
Is that? What is that? And I'm actually dying to know more about this, and I want to seek more into it. But yeah, that's pretty metal, and I like that. I don't really understand how it relates to like most people when you're talking about spirits by way of culture, usually it's a lot of ancestral stuff, or it's like stuff because of your honor or things like that, which we'll get into with Chinese folklore. But what is the point of having these monsters?
I think it's honestly things that they either so typically with spirits in different cultures, they were used to protect the people. So it was like, you don't go out at this time because of X, Y, and Z. When it was really, they didn't want them, going out past curfew, or you don't go into the woods, or you don't go into this, and I think it was used to explain things that they would see. So like, let's say you saw a huge locust-like creature at night, and that's just because your crops are, it's that time of year.
Not enough scarecrows.
Yeah, but they're going to use that in their cult. They're going to spin that in some type of lore, to frighten essentially their townspeople into doing what they want. So think of Krampus with kids,
That makes a ton of sense.
where it was like, if you're bad, you are going to be stolen and eaten. So don't be bad. A lot of spirits and folklore come from actually either the government or the high priest or something trying to get them to. That's in the Bible. That's a ton of the stories in the Bible are like, don't jerk off or you'll be whatever. Don't spill your seed.
What I find, don't you do it? Don't you do it?
Or you'll be struck dead from lightning or whatever.
What I find so interesting about it is that, like, in Judaism, we're taught allegories as a concept. We're taught that things are representative of other things, and that like when you read something, it's not the literal thing. It's supposed to tell you to teach you a lesson. And so when I hear about stuff like this, which is so ingrained in Filipino culture, if you talk to my first episode was with Sapphire about demons and possession, and it was something that was the idea of possession was so ingrained into her that like this vampire that separates her upper torso and preys on pregnant women in their homes is real to them.
Oh, uh-huh.
And I find that fascinating, especially as a utility to teach your children. Like, fear is always the best lesson. Which kind of brings us in, what you were saying brings us into number 2, which is Chinese folklore, which is by far my favorite. It is so fascinating. They literally explain everything away with ghosts. So Chinese folklore is genuinely some of the most metal shit I've ever heard, and there are way too many ghosts to cover, but they're, just to name a few, some of my favorites, and these are the actual names. It will translate it from Chinese, obviously, but these are the actual names of these ghosts. There are weird ghosts, messenger ghosts, ghosts without means, torch mouth ghosts. I know.
Torch mouth.
I know, me AF. Needle mouth ghosts, smelly hair ghosts. Hi. And there's literally something called hero among ghosts, which happens when you die a heroic death.
Okay.
You become a hero among ghosts.
Oh, that's cool.
That's very cool. So it's not only meant to warn you, I guess, from smelly hair and needle mouths, but also to say, hey, if you die in a heroic way, you will come back as this spiritual guide. In Malaysia, the Chinese community celebrates the Hungry Ghost Festival on the 15th day of the 7th month of the Chinese lunar calendar. According to cultural beliefs, it's at this time that the gates of the realm of the dead are open to allow so metal. The gates of the realm of the dead are open to allow them to visit the living. People usually place food in specific areas for the spirits, and the Chinese opera house and singing performances take place, and they're conducted for the spirits' entertainment. And everyone in the town, everyone knows that the first row are for the spirit. So nobody sits in the first row, or else you'll be like, I don't know, like
Sitting on, it's like at the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland.
sitting on a ghost. You can't do that.
Like in your little doom buggy, you have like a ghost going along, like
Yeah.
they're like sitting in your lap. Yeah.
What I find really interesting about this, that I love so much about both Chinese folklore and also Mexican culture as
Right,
well,
it's
and
similar.
So similar. And one through line, I think, besides the obvious like Dios de los Muertos connection of the Day of the Dead, there's this through line of contacting ghosts and relating to ghosts through the medium of music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so wonderful and lovely and really connects you to the spirit realm in a way that is not like, grim. It's
Right.
not scary.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So is this something like, is music as it relates to the spirit realm something that, like, obviously Coco. Obviously, Coco happened. But I'm curious because I grew up in Texas. And shut up. No, but it's real.
I also lived in Texas for a decade, and
Well, hell yeah.
my some of my Mexican family is there. We're in San Antonio.
Well, but music was a huge especially on Day of the Dead, especially on Dios de los Muertos. Huge music was through the air. It was like you couldn't walk outside without hearing music.
I think it's that it's not supposed to be viewed as something that is scary. Like the afterlife is not supposed to be scary if you've been a good person, and contacting your family members, or not necessarily even like contacting them, but honoring them and honoring their life. It's supposed to be seen as a celebration, and so I think it is. I think that's an element of celebrating as opposed to seeing it like something that you would see at a funeral, which is like crying, darkness.
Yeah.
Instead we have these bright, vibrant colors, and it's looking at them, these beautiful pictures of them and honoring them. And
I love that because it's so different from, again, like in Judaism, you are supposed to sit Shiva, which is 7 to 10 days where you are in a house, you can't shower, you don't use electricity, you don't wear any color, people bring you food, you can't make food for yourself. Like it's a very heavy and deep time. And I love the idea of celebrating death in the way that it's, and I think that also like we don't have this connection, Jews don't have this connection with the spirit realm. And so there isn't something to look forward to. Like there isn't that isn't that hope. There isn't the idea. So through this conversation, I feel like we should move on to number 1, which is your story. And also I think just very quickly, Dios de los Muertos, for those who don't know, is the Day of the Dead. It's the Mexican multi-day holiday that focuses on gatherings of family and friends to pray for and remember families and friend members. Danny.
Yeah, for sure.
Friend members.
Yeah, we all have that one Tio where we're like, where'd you come from?
Yeah.
Who are you related to
She's
again?
my aunt.
Yeah.
So does it work the same way? Because I know that there are very specific like rules and like traditions and rituals that you have for your family members on the Day of the Dead, which by the way is to help support their spiritual journey. It's helped.
I think it's different culture, like regionally. I think it's different regionally, and so I'm second generation. So I think that it's different than if you were in actual Mexico. It's different than what I've heard, and so that's just kind of like a clashing of cultures now where we have a lot of Mexican Americans, and I think that they're incorporating some you know, of the stuff that they've learned here with their celebration as well, if that makes sense. Like, so that's just from like talking to my friends, and we all had this huge conversation, which didn't end very well on Facebook, where I thought that I could very stupidly have a conversation and realize that there's
Why
just
would
a lot
you
of
do
fighting.
that? Yeah.
I know. Well, and it was from a white friend of mine that asked if he could dress up as dress up as Miguel for Halloween.
Yeah.
And there's a exactly that we try.
Gah.
They're not the same thing, but I understand that he wanted to cosplay, and so there were some of my Mexican friends that said yes, and some that said no, and then it was the whole thing of like, well, you're Mexican American, so you're not as Mexican, and you don't get to. Oh, it was like a huge fight on my thing, and I just was like, for him, and he's a public person, so
Yeah.
I didn't want him to like post a photo of him done up and getting, you know, shit on by the internet.
It's best not to.
And I do think at the end of the day that if I could get across that they're not the same, that it's not Halloween,
Yeah.
you know, and they're two very different things. I think it's more when people see the culture as a costume. And we see that as well with like
Native Americans.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so kind of got off topic there. But what I was going to say is that it clearly means different things to different over the course of time, and as different countries and as our people have, you know, immigrated to different areas, I think that they've kind of incorporated different elements. So
No,
I would
I think
say
that that's a great point that you brought up, the differentiation between Halloween and Dios de los Muertos, because it is such an intrinsic difference. Like Halloween is like Loki.
Yeah.
Halloween is about trickster gods. It's about causing mischief. And it's about warding off spirits, whereas Dios de los Muertos is about celebrating the spiritual journey.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for me, what I would say, because I saw Gloria Calderon-Colette, who is a showrunner for One Day at a Time, and she's Cuban, and she was like, is it okay, you know, if I join y'all, my Mexican friends, in celebrating? And we said, you know, as long as you are celebrating.
Yes.
I think, yeah, if you're at an event and you want to, that's just how I personally feel. I'm sure people are going to write me and be upset about it, but that's the thing, is that we all feel differently about it.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, depending on our parents and the way that we were raised, that, you know, I don't want to invalidate anyone's feelings.
So speaking of the way that you were raised, like how was the idea of spirit?
It was huge.
Yes.
I mean, my family believed, very stereotypically for Catholics, my family believed that if I was watching like scary movies, I was inviting the demons in.
Oy vey.
It's so funny because I hear from so many people, they're like, oh my gosh, I heard someone like out of the corner of my eye, somebody was like talking about that. I'm like, did you grow up Catholic? And they were like, yeah. I'm like, yes. Inviting the demons in was like something that
I've heard this.
was drilled into us. Definitely couldn't ever play with a Ouija board, although I did finally at Bob Baker's Marionette Theater and found it very cool. I found it so cool. Like, I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that we could actually talk to the dead, because we had a very strong experience while we were there, and none of us were like pushing it anyway. Like, it even said stuff that we wouldn't know. We had to go and we were like, who's your favorite puppet? And it like gave us this weird name, and we like had to go back and ask the people that worked there. I'm like, is there a puppet named Mimi?
That's crazy.
Like stuff like that. And they're like, oh yeah, it's this rat puppet that he used to. I'm like, what? You know, it would be stuff like that we just didn't. So anyways, my family was very.
But question on that.
Yeah.
So if they're super focused on like don't invite the demons in.
Right.
How does that play into the Day of the Dead? Like when you are opening your doors to the spirit realm, like is it just assumed that no negative spirits will come through?
Yeah, but those also aren't demons. Those are your family members.
No, I know, but is that the same? Is it the same idea? Is opening up yourself to demons by watching something scary or like playing with a Ouija board, is it the same idea as opening yourself up to demons by opening yourself up to any spirit or any family?
I don't think so. I think that, you know, Ouija boards and scary movie, like horror films, are seen as something that's a negative, that's like a, you know, it's someone that you don't know.
It's the intention
also.
behind it. Yeah.
It's the intention, and yeah, I think that those have a more negative connotation, because we actually talk to the spirit. If you think of Catholicism, we invite the spirit every Mass.
Oh.
So, you know, you're essentially the Holy Spirit, and you're essentially
Real quick, what's that?
It's everything, Rachel.
Genuinely, is the Holy Spirit?
It's everything.
God?
Gosh, I'm not as practicing anymore where I could give you a concise answer. I feel like it's a blanket for so many things.
Okay.
And also, everyone, I'm just speaking from my personal experience. So if you don't need to write me and correct me,
Don't worry, this audience is so nice. They're so kind.
I was going to say, I went to Catholic school. All my brothers and I went to private Catholic school for years, and
all of this we're
confirmation. I don't practice anymore though, so
we're exploring together.
The
audience for Dark Vibe is great.
Second generation. I always get this. That means my dad grew. Well, he was in Mexico, but yeah, I'm second generation. I think technically, Mexican American. So I didn't grow up the same way that my father did, being in Mexico and then coming here. So
did he pass along the things that he learned from?
There's my family was very, again, extremely Catholic.
Yeah.
So that's that, and food. So
Sure.
The cooking was a thing. My dad was amazing cook, and my aunt, on Christmas and New Year's would be in the kitchen making tamales, and it was just a whole day affair, a whole weekend affair.
But that goes along with the idea of celebration, like you were talking about before, how so many stories about spirits across cultures have something to do with this like revenge fantasy or like honor-based narrative, whereas this is purely celebratory.
Yeah.
Which I think is important.
And I do want to say, though, that being Catholic, they do try to do that as well at Mass. It's supposed to be seen as a celebration of life when someone... I don't know if that's always been the case, but I would say as I was getting older, I started to notice that in Mass, that a lot of our... Like when Nana passed away or something, it was like a celebration of her life as opposed to being sad.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Mourning.
The mourning.
As it were. But you touched on this very briefly, but I don't want to pass over it.
Okay.
You come from a family of clairvoyants.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So my mom, I don't even know where it started. I would say the women in my family are very powerful. I call my mom and her two sisters the Holy Trinity, because if I need something done, I will call on them. And I don't do it. I mean, like, if there's a bad guy in our industry, and myself and several other people have come forward to a company about them or given them, that was a thing that happened a year or two ago, and it just seemed like we couldn't get rid of this person that had done some really horrible things to women. And not saying that my mom and her sisters did it, but I literally
tangibly.
remember. But I remember calling them and just telling them, I need help. Mm-hmm. And it just felt like a last-ditch effort, like I need a miracle.
So what does that look like on their end?
Praying, I guess.
Okay.
I guess for them.
Together,
in some
separately?
way. Separately,
cool.
I think. But when they all come together for a common goal.
The power of three.
Yeah. So I feel like they're pretty. But as far as their clairvoyance, yeah, my mom had a dream. I remember the first time I realized about it, I was in elementary school, I think, and she had a dream that she was drowning, that she was in a plane crash in the ocean, that she was drowning and calling for help, and she thought someone threw a lifesaver, but it was a wreath, because that's what they throw into the water when people die. They throw wreaths.
Oh.
She woke up the next morning and there was a 747 that had gone into the ocean, and she just lost it. And
Jeez.
To have something so visceral, I feel like sometimes when an event happens where a large amount of people die at once or something, sometimes we can feel that.
Yeah,
and
the spiritual energy, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first time I heard. I think she went to therapy, because of it. I think it was so real for her to then wake up and be like, I had this dream, and then seeing it on, on TV.
When did she first tell you about this connection?
I think that was it. And it's really fascinating because another side
And how old were you?
I think I was in elementary school.
Okay.
Another side of Catholicism, and also immigrant families, I would say, is secrets. Is that we tend to keep secrets. And I think we do it as protection. I think we do it to protect the younger generation, but you end up kind of in this weird limbo where you don't really know necessarily everything about your family and your culture. My family kept a lot of secrets, and I've talked to other children of immigrants who have also were like, yeah, you end up in this weird limbo where you don't really necessarily fit in here, but you also don't fit in there. And
so when you learned about your mother's clairvoyance,
yes,
did you at the same time in turn learn about your grandmother's, or did that come later?
I think later, and I still don't even fully know hers. I definitely know her sisters. I
Okay.
definitely know her sisters. Like, they all reported seeing a man that would come and visit them, like when they were little, when they were like 3 and 5 years old. They would talk about this man that would come, and like it was like a spirit that they would all see, and they all describe him the same way. And for me, I started to have it happen in small doses. Like, I had a dream that my car got broken into. I woke up and my car had gotten broken into.
Right.
Like, it would be stuff like that.
This is like how many years ago?
Like maybe 5 years ago.
And oh wow, so that's pretty recent.
Yeah.
And so after seeing that in elementary school and kind of like seeing the way that it affected your mother, like, did you have any fear, or were you just like, spirit is so part of our culture, it's so part of like growing up, you've been normalized?
Yeah, I always felt like I had a great connection to the Virgin Mary for some reason. I don't know, I guess that was just ingrained in me, and she is a really important part of our culture.
In what way? Sorry, my ignorance.
No, it's okay. She's just seen as like our mother.
Okay.
And so I saw
like
her
a protector.
As a protector. She's supposed to be kind of like, I guess, the in-between us and God in a way. I mean, Jesus is as well, but I think that Mary's seen as like the mediator. It's like, hey, I know you sinned. I'm going to go talk to him about it type of scenario. And she's kind of seen as a protective mother. And so growing up, I always felt like I had a connection to her, that she was looking out for me. So I don't know if I was always necessarily afraid of ghosts. I was always fascinated by them. When I was in 4th grade, I had a field trip to the Whaley House, which is a historic structure in San Diego. It's one of Travel Channel's most haunted houses. So it's cool. I went there in 4th grade.
Zoinks.
It is a playhouse. It is a Thomas Whaley essentially rented out his house to be a court. What am I trying to say? A court, like a
court?
A court.
What kind of court?
Wait, like a for criminals. I'm sorry, I've also not had caffeine today.
A court of criminals.
There you go.
A play yard of felony.
Like, a courthouse.
Courthouse.
A courthouse.
I understand.
He also had upstairs is San Diego's, I think, oldest playhouse. It is also where a pharmacy, and because it was a courthouse, if you were convicted of a felony, you were hung in the backyard. So there is a feeling there. And I've been there multiple times since then. It feels to always like call to me. I've done I did an essay in college on the Whaley House. Regis Philbin, actually, before he was who he is, spent the night there and said he saw a woman like crawl up the wall and was like, never again.
Wow.
I think he spent the night for like a story.
Get me out.
You can go. It's in Old Town San Diego. Highly recommend it. Also support historic monuments, because I think they're
crawling
trying
up the wall thing.
Everything's preserved. So, and people were smaller back then, which I love,
cute.
So like all the little doorways and their little beds. I lived in a haunted house. I've lived in several. I spent a semester at UT Arlington, and there by the Sigma Chi house is a burned down shelter, and there were young babies and stuff that were there. And so there's a cemetery, and it just says like, child 1, child 2. Also, like, how dare you build the Sigma Chi house on it?
Yeah, gross. People like doing keg stands on top of a grave.
Yeah,
Get me
on top
out
of
here.
little Cindy or whatever.
Cindy.
So that was an experience I had. I went to the Witches Ball, which is a famous ball in Ohio, because that's where my ex-boyfriend was from, and apparently they buried a witch standing up and put a marble ball to like trap her soul. I've been in a lot of that. I've been in a lot of situations where and then I moved into a haunted house in Denver, actually in Castle Rock, which is 1,000 feet up from Denver. And when I moved in, it was with my fiance, who was the same guy who took me to the Witches Ball. But when I moved in with my fiance, our neighbors came over and said, "Hey, oh, we were hoping someone would move in here. Everyone that's lived here is like broken up and like had their lives ruined. I'm like, cool, thanks.
Okay.
You know, like I'm planning my wedding. Thanks. You know, I'm young and that's great thing to tell me. That house was awful. Like we turned
Super
into
haunted.
monsters. Yeah, we got married. This was a man that I dated for 5 years, so I knew him really well. And I don't know, I tried to sage the house, but we just ended up.
I remember you telling me stories about like pictures would be upside
Yeah,
down.
so he was out of town. We were like about to be separated. Like we were breaking up, and our engagement, we had a canvas, like an engagement photo of us that everyone at our wedding signed, and it was upside down when I came home from work, and he was out of town. And at that point though, I was just like, I know. You think that I don't know? Like I was telling the spirit, like, I know we're not working out. Like, I know. Thanks. What else would you like? You know? And then final story
was
here.
reading you.
Final story here is that we had a rocking chair that was from his family that was notoriously haunted. I didn't tell any of my bridesmaids about it. And it was in our guest room, and one of my bridesmaids woke up screaming bloody murder because she saw a young blonde girl staring at her in the rocking chair, and I was like, yeah, about that.
Yuck. I can't. Like, my nipples are so hard right now. I honestly can't handle this. I get so scared because I'm not familiar.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you grew up having
Around
this be,
it.
yeah, it's
having it be
familiar to
normal.
you.
Yeah.
And for me, it's so not.
Yeah.
And I so believe everything, and I just, oh wow, it scares me. But I wish it didn't. I wish that I had more of a celebratory attitude towards the other realm.
She was so scared that throughout the whole weekend she couldn't be alone when she went pee. She had to. That's how terrified she was.
I
She
feel
had
the
to have
same
someone
way.
in the bathroom with her because she saw this. And it was really funny because I told his mom, I told my mother-in-law, and she was like, that's where that little girl went.
Shut up.
No, she was like, yeah. She was like, I think it's my Nana.
God.
I know. She was like, I think it's my Nana, and sometimes we see her running around upstairs. I'm like, cool. So you just gave this to
We
us?
think it's my Nana is the worst sentence because it's not. It's not your Nana.
It might have been.
It's not.
Anyways, I could go on forever about my haunted
But
experiences.
I
but
love
yeah.
that, and I love that, and I feel like it's really important that, like, I think it's cool and interesting that it's like you said, it's something that's so deeply ingrained, but you've adapted it. The idea of the spirit realm is very strong with this one.
Yeah.
It's very strong with you.
Right.
But I feel like you're using it in ways that is different from.
I try to.
Yeah.
I try to.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I feel I've manifested. That's another thing that I do is like moon rituals, and I wanted to pay for my rent, and this year I was like scared, and I ended up doing this 2-week gig, and it paid my rent for the whole year.
Honestly, I want to bring you back so we can talk about like the power of a woman,
Yeah.
and sex witch and sex magic and being a witch and like what it means to be connected to your feminine power. I definitely want to bring you back for that because you got words to say, I got things to learn.
Yeah.
You know? Danny, I'm so scared right now.
Why don't?
I feel fear.
Here's the thing, though, is that my friends will invite me to, like, fun witches party. Like, here's a Halloween. We're going to bring a Ouija board. And I'm like, if you bring a Ouija board and I'm there, something's going to happen.
Something's going to happen.
So I don't want to do it.
And I believe so implicitly. Like, I am so open to these things that, like, I'm just.
It's
I'm
just
here
funny.
for
My
it.
friends, I think that aren't as connected to the spiritual realm, and they're like, "Let's just do it for fun." I'm like, "Yeah, when you do it for fun, nothing happens,
Yeah.
and it's fun for you."
Yeah.
Like when I do it and I'm there, you're gonna fucking get like some high priestess from the 1800s or something.
Your whole family's
Yeah.
gonna show up and be like, Danny, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Danielle,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
My family definitely. My ancestors have been looking out for me. I don't always like it, what they're doing, but
You guys can't see this because it's a podcast, but she just yelled at the ceiling.
they know. I'm like, you could
Get out of here.
I'm like, why do I have to learn this lesson?
You know,
why can't you just give me the cliff notes?
I've had a couple ghostly. We'll end on this, but I've had a couple ghostly experiences, and I think the only one that was so beautiful and so like, oh wow, it was unlike most ghost stories, I guess, but very similar to a lot of people who believe in Jesus and like Christianity and stuff.
Yeah.
Is after my grandfather died, I was the last one to be with him, and we had a very special relationship. And the day after he died, I was sleeping. I was 6, and I was sleeping in my room, and we had like a full-on conversation. He was sitting on the edge of my bed, and my mom walked in, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm talking to Grandpa." And then I was like,
Ugh.
"Oh no, where'd he go?" And it was just like, that was it.
Yeah.
And that was the only time I've had an experience with a ghost that wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, cool. I'm scared now. I feel fear. It's fine. I'm afraid of the dark.
You could do stuff with me if you wanted.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm
I gotta
down.
be careful. Remember what our reader said is
Yeah.
like, Danny, you're a vessel.
You have a lot of
so,
power.
No, but yeah, I do. But also like, it can mess with your head to have too many spirits in there.
Yeah, I
Trying
don't. You gotta, you got enough going on in your own head.
I do. I do.
So fuck off, spirits. I didn't mean it.
Unless you're trying to take care of me.
Then don't fuck off, please.
Yeah.
Well, Danny, what a fun little convo we had.
I hope that it was fun.
It really was, and I really
I
appreciate
hope that
you.
I didn't offend anyone. This is just my own mixture of being Mexican American. I'm in the limbo, as Edward James almost said,
Yeah.
and Selena. I'm, in the in between.
Yeah.
So
I think they know this is a very conversational thing, and we're just trying to explore these things. There's no right answer to any of this, guys. And if you think that you have the right answer to this, you're wrong, and you should stop listening to this. I don't even want you. Unsubscribe. I don't care.
What?
Go away. Go away. I don't want it. Danny, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm at Ms. Danny Fernandez. It's MsDaniFernandez on all the socials. I don't know when that comedy ghost hunting thing is coming out, but
also you have a great podcast.
I do. It's called Nerdificent. It's on How Stuff Works. It's really cool. It's with Ify Wadiwe, who's another comedian, and we try to take away the gatekeeping in nerd topics, and we break down the past, present, and future of different fandoms. We just did one on Miles Morales. We have one. We had Danielle Radford on for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So
fun.
And we do a lot of giveaways because we're sponsored. So we give away a lot of like cool Pop Funko toys and exclusives and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. Well, shit. All right. I'm just giving you knowledge. Baby. Well, guys, thank you for joining us again. Please rate, review, subscribe to this show because we're going to do more. So you're going to want to get your notifications on. Haha, right. And subscribe to Snarled if you haven't already. Go listen to Something Scary podcast because we love Sapphire very much. And let me know. Write into dark5@snarled.com if you want me to talk about anything that is on your brain space. And if we can work it out together, I'd love to do that. I love you very much. I'm Rachel Evans, Rachel Sam Evans, or Rachel Sam Vance. Depends on how your brain works. Wow. So many words. I love you and good night.